Good morning. Royce, are you here to
Good
join us?
morning. Can you
Oh,
hear
good
me?
morning. Very good.
I do have my video on, but I'm not seeing it, so.
Hang on a second, Royce. We're just seeing if we can get the video up.
Okay, thanks.
We'll be starting momentarily.
Royce, I think that, can you turn it off and then turn it back on again?
Okay. Okay, I turned it off and back on.
See, so I think that it's enabled. I don't, I'm not sure, like, it looks like we're okay on this because I can see the camera on this end.
Okay,
Okay. Very well. We'll just proceed then, if that's okay with you, Royce, without the video. We have the audio though, just fine.
Yep.
Okay, very good. Okay, so let's go ahead and call this meeting to order. Today is May 8th, 2025. Welcome to the Agricultural Preserve Advisory Committee meeting, and it is 9:01 a.m. And we'll go ahead and get a roll call.
Does anyone have their audio on? Let's see. Mine is off. Anyone on their laptop have their audio on? Because it's causing feedback.
Hello, hello? Okay. Okay, I'll step in, go ahead and do roll call. Let's see, Sergio Ricardo,
Present.
Stephanie Stark, present.
We're announcing ourselves.
David Lackey,
Present.
Alex Jevermovic,
Present.
and Royce Larson.
present.
Okay, very good. So we have a quorum, and we also have Tyler Sprague here from County Council. Okay, so I'm going to ask and see if there's anyone here today who wants to speak on an item that is not on the agenda.
We do have someone online with a hand raised. We can see if they're here for general public comment. Larry Lahr.
Yes, I'm sorry. I wanted to speak on a matter on the agenda later on Rancheria, but I wanted to make sure you could hear me and this is the right connection.
We can hear you perfectly. Thanks
Okay.
for checking in. We'll come back to you then later.
Thank you.
And with that, no additional speakers.
Okay, very good. And let's go ahead and consider the minutes from the April 10th, 2025 meeting. Committee members have any comments or suggested edits for the minutes?
Madam Chair, I do have one comment or change.
Yes, please go ahead.
Item number 5, where it says UC Cooperative Extension Representation. And immediately thereafter says Member Jeremovic shared about his department. Then under that are a bunch of bullet points about cooperative extension discussion. I think cooperative extent, Jeremovic should have his own number and then maybe number 6 under cooperative extension with all the bullets.
I believe he's talking about the reports.
Yes, I see, Royce. You're talking about under reports, item number 5.
Correct.
Could you repeat that again? It was a little muffled when you were speaking
Okay.
earlier.
It says UC cooperative extension representation, and then it immediately talks about member Jaramovic.
Yes. Oh, I see.
That should be separated, because the extension versus,
Yes, it looks incorrect. Looks like Jevramovic is representing the cooperative
Yeah.
extension. I see. Thank you, Royce.
If I may, Madam Chair, I think what's going on is I think it's two things. I think Alex was not talking about the UC cooperative extension representation. I think he was talking about the rotating of the chairmanship.
Oh,
or
see, I
chairship.
see.
So I think maybe that should be
Separate.
separate.
Yes, that I see that now. So a completely separate, like bulleted and bolded item.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. And then I also see that there's underneath member Stark, there was a second bullet. Okay, that's just a typo.
I think we just need to add one. So then 5 could be the chairship rotation, and then have member Jevramovich, all of, his comments. And then we should have a 6, and then 6 should be the UC cooperative extension information. And then 7, assessor's report.
yes.
Agreed. Comments noted. Any other comments? Okay,
So Madam Chair, I would make a motion that we approve the minutes of April 10th as amended today.
I
I'll
would second.
we had 2 seconds.
Alex.
Oh,
Alex, you were
okay.
first. Sorry, Royce.
That's okay.
Okay,
All right, Board Member Lackey,
Aye.
Board Member Larson,
Aye.
Board Member Jevramovic,
Aye.
Board Member Ricardo,
Aye.
and Chair Stark.
aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay. Okay, that takes us to agenda management. I had a couple items I needed to move around or suggested if the committee is okay with that. But I wanted to see if there's anyone here today who would like to continue an item that is on the agenda. And if so, please state your reason why and which item and which meeting you'd like to postpone the meeting to. One online. Okay, no one online or in person here. So I recommend, I'd like to move item number 2, which is the APAC Temporary Ad Hoc Subcommittee and presentation to the board. Just trail that to the end of the meeting after item number 6. And also, I believe item number 6 is actually a discussion item. It's not really a change in the order of the agenda, but just wanted to point that out. And that's it. Anybody else have any comments? Is that okay with the committee? All right,
Yes.
very good. With that, let's get into our first agenda item. And this is for item number 1, the Convinia Vineyard Estate LLC. This is contract number 77 AP 32, and this is to consider ongoing eligibility of the property, and it's regarding a 52-acre parcel, number 141460012, and we have reviewed this property multiple times, and I don't know if there's anybody who's online representing the project or the contract today, a representative.
Yes, hi, Chair Stark, Gallery Macon's here, representing the applicant.
Good morning, Gallery Macon. Thank you for joining us. This item, just wanted to refresh the committee's memory, and in our packet is a copy of the letter, which is, we just call a notice to appear letter, informing the owner that we're going to be speaking about their property. And the issue with this property is it came before us regarding a proposal for special events. And during that process, we were looking at the property as for ongoing eligibility, as we do with all of our cases that come before us. And we eventually ended up bifurcating the planning case from the ongoing eligibility case. And so that's what's before us today, is really discussing the ongoing eligibility of the property. And the committee has concerns about the minimum planted acreage of the property. It's mostly vineyard, but we also put in the packet a summary, and Gallery, I'm not sure if you have that with you, but we did involve or did include a summary of the case and the main points, what the background is. There's photos included, but it gets down to the property itself and the minimum planted acreage. Do you have that? That's what we.
I haven't seen this.
Okay. This will just at least help us kind of outline what the issues are. And did you have anything before we get into the details that you'd like to say before we get started?
Yes, thank you. I know this has been quite a saga with this site, and I appreciate your committee's willingness to to continue it and have us get to the point we are now. We tried to update our plan, and on the cover sheet, we included all the relevant uniform rules so that they're all sort of located in one place. But as we've encountered before, I think the last item is the minimum acreage under cultivation, the 50% rule. And so we've been struggling with that interpretation, and we seeked guidance from a couple of the Board of Supervisors, and they were they sort of agreed. They agreed with our interpretation and thought that our property met the intent of that uniform rule. And so we'd like to, if we can't get to a resolution with your committee, we're willing to just take it to the board. If you want to give us if you want to send us with a request for a non-renewal, or I don't know what that wording is, but I think we'll just have to take it there.
Thank you, Gallery. Yeah, it's been a kind of a long process, but I think what we have before us is just clarification, just to remind everybody. It is a 52-acre parcel. It's under one contract. It is a prime parcel, as we talked about. And what we're referring to is specifically is uniform rule, looking for the number. Oh, Uniform Rule 1-2.3, which states in yellow here, it talks about the minimum productive acreage. That's what it is we're looking at right now. So Section A, prime land, which this is a prime contract, and the minimum productive acreage. So I think the part, that bottom part, is the part that is just that we're trying to close the gap on. And so what we're looking at is you typically, when the committee gets a parcel like a prime contract, we look at 50% of the premises or 50 acres. And in this case, we're looking at 26 acres that needs to be planted, fully planted, doesn't have to be grapes, but it needs to be in commercial agriculture. And we do allow for fallow periods or change in crop production or change from maybe vineyards to another crop. Unless it can be demonstrated to the APAC that it's unreasonable due to some other kind of some constraint, a sensitive resource or terrain. And then if the constraints are determined to exist, then APAC recommends the minimum acreage. And we have historically taken, although there's no formula in the uniform rules, what we look at is we look at the total acreage, we get a percentage of that. In this case, it's 26. And then we ask the applicant to show us, if you have constrained areas, which is what we had heard, where are those? And if there are some, then it's up to the committee's discretion whether or not to decrease that 26 down and how much. And I think what we're hearing from you as the representative for the contract is that you would like us to take a different approach, which is to first subtract the constrained areas from the 50 acres and then get half of that. And that's not what we typically do. So one thing that I did want to ask is if we could ask council and see if you would be able to help us at all and see if perhaps we have misinterpreted the rule or there's some other way to make just come to an agreement that we're missing.
Madam Chair, I agree with your assessment of the rule and how you described it. APAC has discretion in determining the minimum productive acreage. It would be best if APAC used uniform ways to determine that. So if you used one formula in the past, it is best to continue using that. However, you do have discretion as long as you use a formula that can be replicated and can
Yeah.
be applied to other
Mhm.
property owners.
Yes. And I'm happy to talk. I'd like to hear from the other members, but as chair, I think we have been consistent in that approach in other cases, but there's members who've been on this committee longer than myself who might want to speak to that.
Yeah, and I actually had a question for Ms. Macon on, so obviously the rule that we're talking about is Rule 1-2.3A1. And so, the applicant and the owner's team is taking a different interpretation, but I guess my question is, what portion of the rules from your perspective supports your interpretation? Is there actual language that you can point to in the rules, in this rule or other areas that supports at least your interpretation of the commercial production requirement?
Yes, thank you, David. So we had historically interpreted it this way, and we had, I don't know, a couple dozen projects come to your committee during the cannabis frenzy, and I don't think it ever came to this, it was ever this close or had a parcel that was this, actually Sunstone got approved for cannabis, and we used the same approach at that time. But our interpretation is the language says prime land must maintain a minimum of either 50% of the premises. And so our interpretation of premises, you're saying it's parcel, but it says premises. And premises to us means, available land that can be used for agriculture. And so if we have a large river encumbering our property, then certainly 50% of that can't be used, and it should just be wholesale taken out of that premise area. And then it's within this same sentence that says, unless, it's within the same, unless it can be demonstrated that it's unreasonable due to the constraints. And so we, the way we're reading it is, I think, reasonable, because if you have a site that's so constrained, then you're going to be limited. You're going to be very limited. And 50%, what we assumed is for any given site, you should be allowed 50% to do other things with roads and residents and winery or other uses besides the plantable area. Where, again, if you're constrained and then you still have to do just 50% of the parcel, well, none of those areas, you're really asking for like 80%, 90% of the site to be under production, because we can't use the rest of it. So this is where we've just struggled. And I think this site in particular, because it's so constrained, that's why we're interpreting it that way.
Yeah, thank you for that information. I'm going to try to share my screen here just to. I just wanted to point out, so I just brought up our uniform rules. And so at the beginning, there's a section of definitions. So there's a specific definition for premises as it applies for the uniform rules. I wanted to read that. It's the area of land under a single Williamson Act or Farmland Security Zone contract. The premises may comprise a single legal parcel or multiple contiguous legal parcels under the same ownership. And so in this case, you have a single parcel. That's your contract. The premises and the contract in this case is one and the same. So that's the context of applying it to the rule when it says 50% of the premises or 50 acres, whichever is less. The APAC's interpretation of premises would be the 26-acre minimum commercial ag production. So just wanted to connect those dots that for the rule, premises is defined for the uniform rules.
Okay, that's helpful. It still doesn't address the main issue of where it says unless it can be demonstrated, and I think that's where we're finding disagreement. But
right. And I would just add the other context, and maybe Mr. Villalobos could bring up the other document and the photos. So, and I do recall several years ago when the cannabis applications were coming through and looking at this property, and actually the document, the first one that you had up. Yeah. Maybe, yeah, that's good just to leave it there. So this photo, number one, just clipped it from the aerial photo. This was from 2021. So it's showing the area on the southwest corner that was in vineyards at that time. And that would have been planted, I believe, at the same time when the cannabis application came in. And so I think I can't speak for how APAC reviewed the entirety of the property, but at least what areas could be fully planted were fully planted at that time. So I don't believe it became an issue of trying to identify additional areas for planting. And that still is the area of the point that the APAC currently is looking at, is that we acknowledge that there are constraints on the property. And that achieving the 26-acre minimum planted isn't possible. And so historically, what APAC has done is looked at the property to see, are there other suitable areas that could be brought in production? And this was one of those suitable areas that the APAC believed could be brought into production. Has a historic, it historically has been in ag production. And with, I think, just measuring this area, this polygon, it was about 2.28 acres. And I think that's probably the one main feasible area that could be planted. And so that's sort of tied to the APAC's recommendation to the applicant to identify a planting plan, planting schedule to bring this area into production. And then just going back to the commercial ag production, that's sort of the basis. If you scroll up to the very top of this page, the first part of the yellow, it says to qualify for Williamson Ag contract and maintain ongoing eligibility, it must be demonstrated that land is and will be used principally for the production of commercial agriculture products. So that's sort of the basic tenet of the Ag Preserve contract. That's the first responsibility to get a contract and maintain eligibility is the commercial, that the property is principally used for commercial ag production. And so the reason why APAC looks at this rule is to try to look at other areas that could be planted to further support this main tenet of commercial ag production. So I think those are the comments that I have.
Yeah, thank you, David. The property certainly can be demonstrated that it's principally used for commercial ag products. It's a very highly successful, notable winery. Right now, the struggle that we're having is that they did do an overproduction, as you may recall from our prior discussion. So they're sitting on a lot of cases. They were planning on opening a tasting room in downtown Santa Barbara, and that fell through. And so they had already created those cases. So they have an oversupply right now for the next few years. And that area in question that you identified, that is their oldest block of vineyard, and that's why it was sort of slated to be removed, to be replaced with cannabis. And so that whole area needs to be taken out and replanted eventually. Our struggle right now is that your committee is asking us to come up with a planting plan like right now, and it needs to be planted. And we're seeking some relief in that they don't need it right now. It's a struggle for wineries to operate right now. There's a glut of wine production. They have a lot of inventory. And if we can somehow interpret this rule to show that they do meet some interpretation of that rule, and they meet every other rule as well. It's not just this one. There's I don't know, a bunch of them, a dozen rules, and they meet all of those and the overall intent of this contract. And so that's where we're really just struggling. Is we'd love some relief and a friendlier interpretation, so we can at least get past this point. And if they were to do something in that area, like some other use, right now that's not part of our application. We're not seeking to put anything there besides just not wanting to come up with an immediate planting plan and schedule and receipts and to plant it, because it is a difficult time.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I guess I just had a thought that maybe the committee could consider. And so, yeah, thank you for the history that that's sort of the oldest block. And then, at some point in time, it's probably, would be turned over into new vineyard plantings. Certainly, we all know, and probably the owner more directly, the challenges with the wine industry currently. And certainly, the county is supportive of continuing to try and support as much as we can. Still staying on trying to maximize the amount of commercial ag production. That same rule, does say with allowances for fallow periods, change of crops. Yeah, and that's a good point. I mean, I know that we had conveyed previously that it doesn't have to be vineyard. It could be another commercial ag commodity, but setting that aside, the committee could view this block area as an extended fallow period for a combination of reasons, that it doesn't have to be currently planted, but it be reserved for future opportunities for commercial ag production. That would be, that could be a way of viewing this area that wouldn't require planting in the near term, but that it still be reserved for commercial ag production in the future when economics improve or other situations improve. And so I want to throw that out as a potential option and see how the committee could view that perspective of a sort of an extended fallow period.
Ms. McCone, I just wanted to make sure I understood this specific area. It does not have any constraints, right? No planting constraints? Like terrain, or that was a different part of the property?
That's, yes, that's correct. That's a different
Okay.
part of the property.
So have you considered other crops to put there? They don't have to be permanent crops. Doesn't have to be grapes.
Not really. I think there's a cover crop on there, but I'm not sure. To maintain the soil.
Yeah, something
composition.
that's what we're looking for. I just wanted to really stress that. I know it was in grapes. We're not asking to put, I know you've heard that part about not being grapes, but it doesn't have to be another permanent crop. Could be any rotational crop, could be alfalfa. It could be anything else that meets. In the uniform rules, there's also a requirement for minimum amount. I think, is it $500 per acre? Or $200 per acre? Yeah. So that's something to look at, and even putting something there to even keep, the soil from leaving the property is another consideration. And just, I don't know if you've spoken to a PCA or any kind of UC farm advisor, or if Royce has any input on that, but it's just something to consider. Is just, that would be perfectly acceptable to put a rotational type crop in there.
Madam Chair, I'll chime in just a little bit and
Yeah.
back to David's comments. If we consider that as fallow for an extended period, I would think that there should extended period, given the constraints of the economics and so on, that there ought to be a time period that then it be revisited, such as 5 years. I'm just throwing that out, and come back and say, well, continue it further or not. But in the meantime, in that fallow period, something as simple as maybe not alfalfa. Alfalfa would be good if they have the water for that, but even just a grain crop cut for hay, something simple, easy, wouldn't take much water, and yet they'd get a crop off of it. That would be my input.
And Royce, Ms. McCone mentioned cover crop. Like, what about something that might be nitrogen fixing in the soil, doesn't necessarily have a harvest to it, but it is part of, good soil health? Would something like that be acceptable to the committee? Okay, I see, yes, people shaking their head. Okay.
And that would be a good idea. There are some reasons for certain kinds of cover crops. You have the different clovers and various things like that that would help the bee populations, et cetera. Just something to demonstrate the usefulness of it.
Yes, and kind of picking up what David was saying, how would we track that? I mean, as the committee, I don't know if we've done that in the past, but I think it would still be being consistent with what our, just what, if we've done this in the past, how have we?
I mean, we certainly could calendar it. I mean, I agree. I think that's a good point to revisit it. Because are the circumstances still in place that need to continue that perspective, or circumstances have changed? But we could, we do have our projection report that, we often will track things, for example, we have the Ballard Ranch one which we tracked for over a year for continuation. So it's a longer time period, but it can be done if that's kind of the direction that the committee is wanting to kind of revisit longer term horizon. And I anticipate there'll probably be some other activity on the property in the intervening time that would occur, and we would have to, revisit that. That's and then do the circumstances still exist as far as the committee looking at this property? If they were to come in for some other application on the property that would normally come to APAC, our ongoing eligibility would still, it'd be part of that review, and that still could be revisited at interim time if that happened.
Okay, thank you, David. Any other thoughts from committee members?
Madam Chair, yeah, and I generally agree with everything that's been discussed, and giving this grace period to allow the owner of the property to, eventually have something there on these 2-point-something acres. But I would like to know if that is a commitment that we can get from I guess, Galerie. Do you think that this is something that the owner will do? I heard you say that you need this time period, but I just need to, I guess, hear a set commitment for this.
Yes, hi. I don't know what type of commitment I can make on behalf of the owner, but they are certainly committed to this winery, and they will, I was looking at their projected case production, and it looks like in 2028 is when they are expected to ramp up again and be trying to reach the levels that they were prior to their overproduction. And I do think it takes a few years to get the vines to be viable. So I don't know when that time frame is, but certainly they're not going to just let this area be fallow forever. That's not in the plans. They're going to use the land.
For production agriculture you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay. So it seems like, Galerie, do you think you need to go back to your, I guess I'll step back for a second. What we're asking is some commitment from the owners that this, part of it seems like we've settled that this is an area that is not planted now, but what committee is looking for is some assurance and commitment from the owner that this area is going to remain in agricultural, production agriculture. So you were asking for some sort of ideas or relief because the business is just in flux right now, and we're not asking for vineyards necessarily to be planted there, but what we're looking for is an assurance that there will be some sort of either cover crop, rotational crop, some sort of assurance that you're going to keep it in long-term agriculture. And we'll revisit it in, I mean, we wouldn't revisit it in 3 years, but I would say at minimum, maybe we revisit it in 6 months and then another 6 months or in another year, something like that. But I didn't want to do that unless that's really something that you think is of interest to the owners.
Um,
Are you
yes,
clear
I
what we're
can,
asking?
I can commit, you know, if what I'm hearing is that you're allowing a fallow period with a commitment to put some type of cover crop, then yes. And it can be revisited in 6 months or a year to show our, you know, what we've planted and how it's going, then yes.
Yes, and I guess the question would be is if the owners have some interest to develop this property, that would be that would be a whole nother review we'd have to make. We're
Yeah,
just
we
trying-
understand that, and
Okay.
that's not what we're looking for right now.
Okay.
Sorry, just to add on to the clarification, I guess, everything you had restated, Gallery, but also that the owner's intent is that this area is going to be reserved for future commercial ag production at, you know, whatever that point is. Certainly the cover, you know, if they just want to do some type of cover crop for soil management, they can do plant
Yeah.
a crop, certainly. It's really that the owner is committed, you know, this is an extended fallow period for certain circumstances of economic and other reasons, and that the owner is reserving this area for future commercial ag production, I think is the main point.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm hearing a thumbs up from Gallery. Is that right?
It's hard not having the owner here,
Okay.
but so for as much authority I have, yes.
One thing we could do is continue the item another month to give you time to speak with whoever you
I-
need to talk with and
No, we're, it costs them money every time I come on here, and we really wanted to just get to a resolution one way or another today.
okay. I see. Thank you. Let me pause for a moment and see, I'm going to see if there's any public comment. And Gallery, did you have any other comments you wanted to make at this time? Because I was going to open for public comment, bring it back to the committee, and then make a motion.
No, I'm
Okay, very good. Is there anyone here today who wants to make a comment on this item from the public?
We do have someone on via telephone, and if you'd like to speak on this item, it's *9 on your phone to raise your hand. Not seeing any hands raised.
Very good. We'll close public comment. I'm going to bring it back to the committee members. So I think we have a potential compromise here to move forward, possibly not continue the item, but make a motion so that it is, I think, clear enough where we would need to also track this. Clear that what we're looking for, which is an assurance that this block remains in long-term production agriculture, and that you know, we're allowing for a fallow period allowances, and just to check back with the owner and the contract in, what's the committee's interest? Are we talking about a year, 6 months? What? I'm just putting some thoughts, some timeline out there.
I'm okay with 6 months. I'm also okay with a year, whatever.
Okay.
This one.
Madam Chair, my opinion would be a year.
A year, okay.
What would be a year follow period, or would it be just us to check if there's a
Mm,
culture there?
mm-hmm.
I think we want to give them more than a year, so if it's, I would say, if you're not comfortable with 5 years, it could be, 3 years, and then obviously the board can, the committee could, if economic situation still exists, to continue it, they can revisit it and extend it, but maybe 5 years is too long. Maybe 3 years, with a horizon of at least initial that.
Hillary mentioned 2028, so we could do 2028.
I mean, we could do that, but it makes me think like, I think we need to think through our motion, because I'm not quite sure what the motion would say. If it would be, we find this contract consistent with the uniform rules, provided that Southwestern Vineyard Block, how would we say the motion? And then if we need to think through that, because my concern is that if we spend a lot of time on this, and if we say a motion that's misunderstood, there, another planner could see that and say, oh, this property is consistent with the uniform rules. And I just want to make sure if it gets, another proposal comes up, property gets sold, let's say, another proposal is to, somebody is proposing development on this particular area, and it appears that we've said, oh, this contract's consistent with the rules.
So if David, I'm going to move you around on this document a little bit. So just if you go up to the first page and the second bullet from the bottom. So this is in reference to that photo 2, which is we can go to after this, but essentially that's the ag block that we've been talking about, and it's not necessarily that this is the exact 2.2 acres, but it's basically identifying that area that was previously in production. Maybe just helping the committee with our motion, and that was one of the reasons why I think this at least informational document could be referred to, and this could be part of just the motion. Both for referencing the photos for the area that we're talking about. But getting to the point of finding, if the motion is to find that the contract is in compliance with Rule 1-2.3A1, and specifically in reference to the current economic circumstances, APAC is interpreting that the rule would allow for this contract an extended fallow period of up to 3 years, 5 years, whatever that may be, with assurances that the contract owner reserved this area for long-term commercial ag production, and this area referring back to photo 2, photo 2, if you could scroll down to that one. So that's at least our most recent, I think, from last year from Google Earth, still showing that same area be reserved for long-term, and that the committee review this property, the circumstances for bringing this into commercial ag production annually, beginning whatever date. That could be one way of looking at it.
Yes, that is one way. I'm kind of also looking at it like from another perspective, I don't know how much we want to get into the business of tracking fallow land. We don't usually do that. So I'm trying to think of how to write the motion so it communicates that we've reviewed this contract, And that we've, although the land, can I say this? I guess what I'm getting, wanted clarification on is if we are shifting a little bit, which I think is reasonable, and reviewing how we interpret this rule, 1-2.3, and we're looking at it more like a fallow period. If that's what we're doing, then why would we have it come back, I guess? Now I'm starting to think about all the other contracts that we might have, and they have fallow periods as well. Why this one? Why would this one come back? If we've already made a decision at this point that this is going to be an area where it's just they're in a fallow period, do we need to do that?
I guess I would say maybe if we're trying to also shape out what APAC's interpretation of how we treat the last part of that rule when the APAC
Yes,
recommendation.
right.
In this instance, I would interpret that APAC is acknowledging that they can't meet the 50% and that APAC's interpretation is to try to identify maximum additional areas that could be brought into planning. I think that's a principle
Huh.
that would guide us in making that whatever the ultimate case-by-case determination. And in this case, we're identifying this as one of those areas that APAC believes can be brought into production that would bring it into up to
Yes.
20.62 acres or 39.65% of the property
Mm-hmm.
premises.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how to weave in the owners, with the, and then maybe we bring in that, the extended fallow period for this rule that it allows for economic
Yeah,
circumstances.
I think that's, I
With
would,
the understanding that it will be brought into long-term production.
yes,
If we framed it that way, I think we probably don't, and then I would recommend we tie it back to this document
Yes.
for this hearing,
Mm-hmm.
because at least that's something we could always refer to.
I agree that, I agree with that.
Context.
I agree with that. I guess what I'm trying to say is that I didn't want to get into the business of now having to track fallow land. It just seems like something that is overburdensome for both ends, the contract holders and then the committee. And I think I didn't want to set a precedent there. So I agree. I think if we could craft our motion so that we refer to the document, that we recognize that if all the planted acres, including this area, is a long-term fallow under whatever transitional land or however we want to say it, fallow, I think is how we said it in the fallow period, then it would meet whatever the acreage is, which doesn't meet the 50%, but it's as close as they could get. I'd be very happy with that. Trying to think of how to make that motion. It's tricky.
Maybe, is that weigh in on that perspective from the other committees, and then we could maybe try to take a stab at crafting it?
Do you feel tied to having it, us do check back? Are you okay with letting
No, I'm
go?
okay, but the way you guys have been describing it, you guys been discussing it, I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Same here.
Okay, thank you, Alex. And Royce, any thoughts?
Well, actually, at this point, I do have a question. I've not seen this particular aerial photo before. So I question the 2.28 acres as it's outlined. It looks to me like there's a couple of buildings in there. That then would not even be possible for production. And so is it 2 acres? Is it?
It's a vehicle.
I think those were just some storage things that were temporarily there. Those
Okay.
aren't permitted
Or
structures.
Gilleray, did you have any thoughts on, or do you know what those buildings are for?
Yeah, they're not buildings. I think it's just like a
Containers or something.
container or something. Yeah.
Okay.
One is vehicle for sure,
Right.
yeah, or a couple of vehicles.
Is that one a house that's over on the other side, or is that a bare dirt or a pile of compost or something like that?
Oh, I
the
think
the
it's-
grade area.
Yeah, it looks like it's some soil or something that's mounded up
Okay.
temporarily, so,
That's a compost area.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
But Royce, in general, are you
am.
comfortable with this and not having it to come back for review?
Yes.
So maybe our motion could be something where we find consistency with meets ongoing 77 AP 032 meets ongoing eligibility requirements, provided that um, is that southeastern section remain in production agriculture, and can we just reference the document?
What do you think of taking two kind of related but separate motions? Maybe the first motion can focus on APAC's practice and interpretation of this rule.
Mhm.
And then the second motion can be as related to that perspective, how it relates to the APAC's conformity or the property.
Yeah, and I'm just looking at council really quick, given what you had talked about earlier, maintaining, consistency. Do you think that would be a wise choice?
Fine, yeah.
Okay. Good idea.
Okay, so maybe I'll take a stab at the first one and you can help me with the
Okay.
second one. So I'd make a motion that the APAC find that APAC's interpretation and application of Uniform Rule 1-2.3A1 involves consideration that the prime land meet 50% of the premise or 50 acres, whichever is less, fully planted, and that where constraints are determined to exist, APAC will recommend the minimum productive acreage, which includes evaluation of additional acreage suitable for commercial ag production, which can be brought into commercial agriculture production to align with, to demonstrate that the principal use of the contract is for production of commercial agricultural products. We may have to reread this, David, I'm sorry for the length of it. I'll just leave it at that. I mean, I think that if that kind of frames, if the APAC thinks that frames how the committee views sort of their discretion to determine the minimum acreage where constraints exist.
Can you read back what you have?
I wasn't even anywhere close to getting that.
Okay. I didn't mean you had to read back, but I was thinking it was just gonna, when we do the minutes, we're gonna have to listen.
No, I'll listen to
in
the
detail to get it
Yeah, as
done,
long as
but-
everyone agrees with what Mr. Wacky said.
I mean, I was trying to paraphrase that we are complying with what's on the, in the language, but then for the last sentence where constraints are, just characterizing what our practice has been, that it's to primarily look at additional acreages on the premises, which could be brought into commercial ag production that would further the intent that the principal use of the property is demonstrated to be for the production of commercial agricultural products. Something like
Okay, let's, you want to call for a vote?
Was there a second?
Second the motion.
Thank you. All right. Board Member Lackey,
Aye.
Board Member Larson,
Aye.
Board Member Jevremovic,
Aye.
Board Member Ricardo.
Aye.
And Chair Stark.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. And then I'll take a stab at the second motion and please add to it as you feel appropriate. I would make a motion that the committee find the contract 77 AP 032 meets ongoing eligibility requirements, in particular with respect to Uniform Rule 1-2.3A1.
Provided that the Southwestern Vineyard Block as depicted in summary information regarding Convinia Vineyard Estate LLC remains in commercial ag production. Including fallow periods.
Question on your motion. Do we want to, one of my thoughts was to refer to the rules allowance for fallow periods and specifically for this contract define that this would be, that there's economic circumstances that would or that have a need for an extended, potential extended fallow period, or that this, 2.2 acre block will be reserved or will be remain available for future long-term.
Yes, so I think the part that's not in there is the part that due to their circumstances. So what I said was what you had said meets ongoing eligibility, uniform rule, blah, 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 and find that provided that, and I said the Southwestern Vineyard Block as depicted in, the document, that summary information.
Two of that.
Oh, photo, okay. Photo 2 of the document, summary information regarding Convinia Vineyard Estate LLC remains in commercial ag production, and then we could have period. The committee, something to the effect of, do you have a period? Then you say the committee considers or is aware that or recognizes the applicant is unable to provide a planting plan at this time, but will remain in fallow period until something like that. So you're recognizing that the uniform rule, you're recognizing that they are not able to provide a planting plan at this time or provide a specific crop, but that they will put it in some sort of, it is in a fallow period, but they're going to have some sort of crop in it. And it will, I don't think you have to say what crop, but just say that it is in commercial ag production.
Yeah, I don't want to wordsmith it to death.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that captures at least the intent that you view it in terms of that we framed all of the points?
Yeah, unless somebody else has an idea, but I think it captures it.
I will second.
Dated
Oh.
2028.
date the motion?
To date, the fallow period, it can stay forever, or say until the economic circumstances change to continue the,
In the motion, you're saying?
otherwise it can stay open forever, right?
Mm-hmm. I see as more that we are keeping the land open and available for commercial ag production than we are. I mean, I see it fundamentally that just for our role and stewardship of the uniform rules and what we're interpreting is not so much planting, forcing the planting, it's just maintaining it for commercial ag production. If that means cover crop for 8 years, that's what that means.
And I agree with that. I think maybe that was the point that I didn't hear, but I heard it the second time you reframed it, is that due to the current economic circumstances, an extended fallow period is warranted,
Mm-hmm.
and that the landowners and that the landowners had identified that this southwest block in photo 2 would remain available for future long-term commercial ag production. And then the point that I would add to that is that if we want, and that would result in 20, we can go back to those numbers, 20.62 acres fully planted or available for fully planting, representing 39.65% of the premises.
The total is 20.62.
Yes.
Okay. So let's see, I could rephrase my motion here. So I forgot, what was the first part you had down there?
Aside from all of my first part that I had, I reframed it to say that, due to current economic circumstances, or just say
Industry trends or something.
current, industry trends and economic circumstances warrant an extended fallow period. And APAC has identified the 2.2 acre block of land in the southwest corner in photo 2 of said document suitable for long-term commercial ag production, and the landowners have identified that they will have the land remain available for long-term agriculture production. And that would result in a total commercial ag production of 20.62 acres or 39.65% of the premises.
Okay, so I agree the elements are there. We referenced the document, we referenced the 20.62, the photo 2, and that we are allowing warning based on industry trends, an extended fallow period. So I second the motion. Roll call, please.
I'm just trying to think. We asked for public comment on this, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. Board Member Lackey,
Aye.
Board Member Larson,
Aye.
Board Member Jevremovic.
Aye.
Board Member Ricardo.
Aye.
And Chair Stark.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay. Gail Ray, are you still with us?
Yes, hi, I'm still here.
Okay.
My only comment would just be if it could be agent, maybe not, or applicant's agent.
Yes.
Yes.
I don't.
Yeah, we can do that, certainly. I would
Okay.
amend my motion to reference.
And then we'll make sure you get a copy of that motion too. I'm not sure what the process is internally with,
Just when the draft minutes come out.
yes.
Yeah, and then obviously we can, I anticipate we'll have to massage it somewhat. It's quite lengthy and
Yeah.
convoluted, but
Well, thank you for coming today and working with the committee to try and find a resolution. It's much appreciated when we can have some dialogue back and forth and find a way to come to an agreement and move forward. I appreciate it very much.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Takes us to, we continued item 2, so this takes us to item number 3, which is a new agenda item, and this is for Rancheria LLC. It's for Agricultural Preserve Contract 69 AP 33. And the committee is considering the ongoing eligibility of the contract and consistency with the uniform rules. It is parcel number 099040024. And it is also tied to item number 4 on the agenda. The two were agendized together. Although we will talk about them together, but we'll make separate motions for each one. What had happened is that there was a portion of the parcel was condemned by Santa Barbara County. And there was a final judgment order that was included, I believe, in the packet. It shows the recorded document. And because of that, each parcel or the property has to be considered for its own individual contract and maintain the ongoing eligibility. So that's what we're here today. And I believe Mr. Lair is with us to represent both of the properties. And I did speak with Mr. Lair at one point when I sent there was a notice to appear letter that went out, and that was also in the packet to inform the owner or the agent of the owner that we're going to be discussing this case. So with that, I don't know if Sergio, you have anything specifically to?
I also want to say that I did have communication with Mr. Lair, through email, explaining the fact that, the assessor's office typically gets these documents from the recorders when they are recorded. For some reason, this document was missed, and it was recently picked up by our mapping department, and they, based on the information that was on the document, the actual condemnation of some portions of these parcels, they had no option but to remap the parcels. And so anyway, so it just had some communication via email with Mr. Lair.
Really quick before we go to Mr. Lair, could you just give us an overview, Sergio, of that draft map in progress that we have up on the screen?
Sure.
Those are the
And I
areas.
think the maps, the APN maps have been finalized. And they are pretty much in line with what you see on the screen right now. So basically parcel 24, which is our first item that we're talking, contract number 69-AP-033. That contract was comprised of only one parcel. At the time the contract was created, the size of the parcel was over 100 acres, making the contract a non-prime contract. Parcel 24 is now parcel 99-040-029. 29 is now the new parcel. As I checked with my mapping department, they finalized, like I said, they finalized the map. And so now it is now 29. And as you can see on the screen, it is 97.68 acres. So this condemnation made the size of this parcel smaller or lower than 100 acres. So the issue that we are having now is that the contract is going from non-prime to a prime contract because it's less than 100 acres. The other parcel 22, that doesn't have any issues in terms of the size. Only a 0.17 acre was taken. And that parcel 22 now became parcel 27. There's no issues in terms of changing the type of the contract. It used to be, it was a non-prime. It's going to remain to be non-prime. It is contract 68 AP011, and it is also comprised of multiple other parcels in addition to parcel 22. So that's the background. That's the context. What we can do is we can look at 69 AP033, and I guess just I wanted to inform the committee that this is now a prime contract, and Mr. Lair, I've explained this over the email that I sent him. It now has to comply with prime requirements, prime contract requirements, meaning that we now this contract has to have at least 50% of commercial ag production. And I think that's where we are. And so we just need to review whether it's meeting that requirement.
Thank you, Sergio. That's a lot of information, Mr. Lair. Did you follow along with what the assessor was saying, and did you have any questions or anything to share with the committee?
Yeah, I believe I understood that, but just to share some background information. This property is owned by the Buell family. Jim Buell passed away about 2 years ago. I'm the executor and trustee of his estate, and I'm also the manager of this LLC that owns these properties. And the Buell family's owned this property since 1865 at the end of the Civil War. Nothing has changed on this property as far as ag use, other than a single family house that was built in the 50s. We're here today because a quarter century ago, there was a taking of about 4 acres of Buell's property for the on and off ramps for the 154-101 interchange. And, you know, it seems peculiar to me that we're even talking about this a quarter century after the fact. Sorry. So it seems to me it's highly unnecessary to even be talking about this. But a question I have is in the notice of to appear letter that I received, it references the uniform code, and I presume that's the current code it's referencing. I'd like to know what the uniform code was in 2000 when this condemnation took place. And because I know there was a major revision about 2007 with the uniform rules. So that's just my background information.
Thank you, Mr. Lair. Yes, it is an odd situation that it's just something got picked up as Sergio was explaining, but I could understand from your perspective, you're thinking, why now? And as far as the rules go, is your question, are you thinking, well, I just wanted to clarify that the way the rules are written, the landowner and the contract owner have to follow the current rules as they are written. It's so that's why I included that in the letter. And is that kind of what your question was? Is if the rules were different at the time when the action occurred, would it have been any different then? Is that what your question is?
That was that question, other than
Okay.
saying,
Yeah.
why is this necessary a quarter century later?
Yes. Well, it's because anytime there's, I think it would have been smoother perhaps if it was taken care of back in the day. It would make a lot more sense. But this is something that is part of our, just our program to maintain, some level of enforcement and just compliance with the uniform rules. So this is something that came to our attention, and our way is to reach out to the landowner. And this letter is just kind of a come and talk to us so that we have some discussion with the landowner. And we are trying to basically work with the landowner to obtain this would be a replacement contract. So we are not proposing that this land is not meeting the uniform rules in any way. That's just kind of where we are right now. We're just looking to see and to find out from you and/or the representative for the property, is there, what kind of agriculture is on the property? And is there any other development or things that might be an issue for the uniform rules? But this is our starting step.
Okay.
Yeah.
To answer your question, it's used for cattle grazing. Both parcels are both the land under both ag preserve contracts. It's just dry land cattle grazing, and that's all it ever has been, and that's all there's any intended use for, or any ag viability, frankly.
Mm-hmm. And then also usually the next step in this process is to, this is our meeting where we would explain kind of what the issue is today. And we would need to obtain a application from the contract holder to basically obtain a replacement contract, which is just the same. All the information you're providing us today would be documented, and we're just redrawing the lines so that the property would include or not include the condemned property or the property that the county took.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I guess it's necessary. I've been through that before with other property I manage.
Yeah.
And
Kind of similar to like just a tentative parcel map or something where there's a lot split. And so we go through that process just to look at the property, make sure it can meet all the rules of the day, and then you end up with a new contract if it meets all the eligibility requirements.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. It seems unnecessary, yet it will be several $1,000s to do that. And cattle grazing is not very lucrative, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
So are you saying, because the one contract that goes like 2 acres under the 100-acre minimum, it's not prime, it can't be used for prime. So what happens there?
The one that's it's not considered the less than 100 acres. So the 100-acre parcel, the larger one, it sounds like you have a cattle grazing operation. And so we would be looking at what's the production agriculture. Are there any developments on the property? And then we look at all the other consistency items. So, but those are the main ones. The other property, which is the prime contract, you need to have 50% of the property in production agriculture. Is that property also grazed
Correct. It's
cattle? Okay.
part of the same grazing operation.
Okay. Yeah. Then that would also be your agriculture that gives you the meets that requirement of the uniform rules for production agriculture. It doesn't have to be crops, it can be cattle too.
But we're under 100 acres on that one, you're saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what the gentleman that spoke earlier said that by email to me that has to be prime, and it can't be prime. It would have to be irrigated to do anything.
So yes, Mr. Lara, this is Sergio.
Uh-huh.
If you're suggesting that it's too difficult to bring it into a commercial production type property. I would offer a suggestion that maybe you, instead of having two separate contracts, when you do the replacement, you just do one replacement and include this little parcel, the less than 100-acre parcel, include that into the larger one. And that way, you don't have to meet the prime contract requirements, because then it's part of this larger contract that is non-prime. It's under one ownership. It's part of it's the same operation. It's the same contract. So the only difference is that instead of having two contracts, now you'll just have one replacement, one new one, and then you don't have to do anything additional. You just continue your grazing operation as you have, and that qualifies you as for the non-prime requirements.
That would be one application.
Right, I understand.
Yeah.
I guess my last question, is there any way we can find a waiver to deal with all this stuff, since we're looking at something that happened 25 years ago that was done by the county with the condemnation?
Mhm.
And was an oversight by the county at that time to address it when they were doing the condemnation?
Do you mean like a waiver from all the fees and all that, all the
Waiver of dealing with this, so we don't have to spend the thousands of dollars to go through a new application process.
Mr. Lair, this is David Lackey, a committee member from the Planning and Development Department.
Mhm.
I'm not aware of any waiver process. I mean, we can, I guess, do some more research and see what other potential pathways. Yeah, I mean, I completely understand, your perspective, in that, one, these were all external condemnations that weren't any involving the landowners, development or proposal. It was all external. Yeah, and it from a technical side, it changed the external boundaries of both of those contracts. So anytime there's a change in the external boundaries of a contract, you need to get a replacement contract, and that's sort of what you've heard from the committee today. But I mean, I think we certainly at least can look in to see if there's any pathway. And that was also going to be a question that I had for council, is that particularly for this smaller parcel, the 69 AP 033, that it's now physically less than 100 acres, but it's the same as a result of external condemnation by public agencies.
And there's been no change of use
Right.
for the last 160 years.
Right. Could there be an interpretation, just as far as the prime versus non-prime issue, is that it wasn't, the change in that wasn't as a result of anything the landowner did, and therefore maybe the APAC doesn't look at this as a prime contract. That was one question. If there were to still be two separate contracts, it doesn't resolve the need to get replacement contracts, because in fact, both of these contracts, the external boundaries have changed. And so the new boundaries of the land under contract would have to be defined, and that gets defined through a replacement contract. Obviously, we can look into see the cost of doing that, and assessor had provided, certainly, even if there's no waiver or reduced costs, at least one way to reduce costs is if the landowner wanted to bring both properties under one contract. That would be at least a somewhat simpler process, still involving some cost, but not a cost for two separate replacement contracts. But yeah, maybe just go, sorry, I rambled a bit, but maybe to my question to council on the APAC's ability to interpret whether this could be viewed still as a non-prime versus prime contract.
Can certainly look into all those questions if you'd like to continue the matter. We could just put it on pause and not require a new contract for the time being and just resolve some of these bigger questions and then come back in 1 or 2 meetings and.
Okay.
Definitely. I think it's very helpful to have you here, Mr. Lair, and expressing from your perspective what you see and that the land has essentially been maintained as it has been for a long time. So we will definitely bring this back and look into the question of not only what, if we could look at these both as non-prime contracts, that would give you some flexibility to, at least if you wanted to have 2 contracts, you wouldn't be required to maintain that prime contract requirement of the 50% planted. That would be disruptive, and this would give you more flexibility. You already, but did you understand the part, just wanted to clarify about the, if you wanted to do 1 contract?
Right, I do understand that. and I
Okay.
Thank you for that.
Okay.
You know, and.
Very good. And then we'll also look at possibility from the internal process to see if we can see if there's any allowances, given the circumstances in this case, for the cost of having to process applications, given that it was the county involved with this. Is there any other comments from committee members? And I need to take public comment as well in a moment. So, okay.
Yeah, no, it just sounds like, I think those are kind of the points that you identified, that it's now on the county, on us to look into those. I don't think there's anything at this point that we're requesting,
Yeah.
Mr. Lair.
No.
Okay.
So, did we want to have Mr. Laird come back next month, or are we thinking we might need 2 months?
Madam Chair, I'd suggest 2 months.
Okay.
Council time to,
Yes, Mr. Lair, would you be available to meet? Would you be able to come back, or another representative that would put us at June, yeah,
10th.
July 10th?
Yes, I'd be able to
Thursday.
do that. I can do it if I can do
Okay.
it by Zoom again.
Okay. I'm going to make a pause here real quick. Any comment, public comment on this item?
Again, if you're joining us via phone, it's *9 to raise your hand. Go ahead and raise your hand if you'd like to speak on this item, *9. No hands raised.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Lair, any last words?
No, thank you very
Huh?
much. I'd like to
Okay.
find a way to make this whole thing unnecessary, given the circumstances. And if you could do that, I'd be very happy.
Okay. Any comment from committee members? Okay. Make a motion?
Make a motion to continue this item, or these 2 items, item number 3 and item 4, for contracts 69 AP 033 and 68 AP 011. Continue the items to the July agenda.
I suggest we make separate motions.
Separate motions?
Because they're separate items. We could do 1 motion. Okay. All right, very good.
Who was the second on that?
Do we want to say why we're continuing it too?
That's what I was going to suggest, if we
Yeah.
can amend your motion to provide time for the committee to look into the ability to consider contract 68 AP 033 as non-prime versus prime, and to see if there are any potential waivers or application cost reductions available to the applicant for potential replacement contracts.
Second? Okay. We have a second?
I'll second.
David seconded. Roll call, please.
Board Member Lackey,
Aye.
Member Larson,
aye.
Board Member Jevremovic,
Aye.
Board Member Ricardo,
Aye.
and Chair Stark.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Lair, we will see you again on July 10th.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah, it takes us to item number 5, which is Just Over There LLC. And this is for contract number 74AP034. And this is to consider ongoing eligibility for Ag Preserve Contract 74AP034B and consistency with the uniform rules. This contract came before us. There was a change in ownership of a split contract, and so this is sent a letter that was provided in the packet to Just Over There LLC, care of James and Natalie Burston. And we were going to discuss the contract. And I have a copy of the letter before me, but it is in the packet, as I had stated. And I did speak with Natalie Burston, I believe, over the phone at some point. So it's nice to see you in person here today. Good morning. And yeah. So Ms. Burston, did you want to say a few words?
Yes, thank you. It's my first time ever doing something like this, so I'm a little nervous. I am also want to introduce two people that are on the phone. So I'm Natalie Burtson. I'm one of the owners. My husband Jim is on the phone also, can't be here today, but wants to be part of this. And then also I'd like to introduce Heidi Jones, who has been helping us as we have become landowners and farmers over the last 9 months. And Heidi is with Marikai Land Use Consulting. So I just want to give you a little bit of background. We bought this home in July, and with it, the orchards that came on it. And currently there are orange groves and an avocado orchard that are being farmed. We have a ranch manager or orchard manager that's been helping us. And one of the things that we discovered was that a lot of things, but mainly that the orchard, the avocado part, had a lot of damage over the past few years with all of the rain. So, we've taken it upon ourselves to really understand this parcel, understand the orchard. I've had people that are experts come and look at the grove. I've had Ben Faber from UC Continuing Ed the Cooperative Extension come out. And we have a rehabilitation plan now created to to try to turn around the orchard and try to turn around the trees that are struggling. So that is all underway. And what I really just want to express is our commitment to try to make this work, be part of the Carpinteria farming community, be contributing, make our agricultural land produce, at its maximum, be healthy and vibrant and contributing to, not only Carpinteria, but producing for people to consume. So we're committed to that. And I just, for us being part of the Ag Preserve helps us underwrite some of that cost to make the investment. It's not a super lucrative business to sell your fruit, and that was a surprise for us. But so yeah, I'm here with that's our story, and that's really I'm happy to talk to you about. I feel like we have a plan for if we can get these working better. We have a plan for replacing some of the orange trees with more avocado trees, with replacing some of the dead avocado trees with new ones. So all of it, though, really hinges on year one. And if we can have our rehabilitation plan start showing the, a positive impact on it. And I have copies of the plan. I have, I have a map of the land itself that shows that everything that can be, I feel like everything that isn't in an environmentally sensitive area on this 9.5 acre piece is planted or it has a house, the house. which has been there for 20+ years. So the only other thing I will add is that I don't understand the history. I don't fully know the history of the ag contract. I think our neighbor above us was part of it for a while, and she had 19 acres. At some point before we bought, they split it. We didn't know that. And then now that I understand the rules better, I realize like we have tipped into a situation where we don't meet some of the requirements as it relates to total acreage. So I just wanted to, have a conversation about that.
Sure.
Sorry, long story.
And Natalie, thank you for that. I'm Sergio with the assessor's office. I can give you, for the committee, I can give a little bit of the history, the background. The property was originally a 3-parcel contract. David, can you go to the document that was recorded, and I put it on the inbox? Yeah, and go to the very last page of this document. So this property included 3 parcels. The parcel to the north it says it's lot 2 of the, I believe it's a lot line adjustment back in 97. So that is a parcel that is owned by someone else. I don't have the name currently here, but they actually, I don't know if they were the ones that created the lot split or the lot line adjustment, but they did get a replacement contract. So just for your information, whenever there's a lot line adjustment or a lot split or any type of a mapping situation, currently the APAC requires the owners for each of the lots to get a replacement contract. So lot 2, the owner of lot 2 did get a replacement contract back in 2004. I think it's when this contract was recorded. Unfortunately, like you said, Natalie, lot 1 never got the replacement contract, and it just kept the old sort of non-existent or non-compliant contract. And so we didn't know that until you purchased the property. Then we looked, and I noticed, again, going back to the history, that the contract was one that contained 3 parcels. One of them has a separate replacement contract. The other 2 are still there with no replacement contract. So that's the reason the assessor's office suggested that we put this on the agenda today. With that, we now have to review to make sure that it's meeting the ongoing eligibility of the contract. So I guess number 1, in my opinion, and I'm only one member out of this committee, there needs to be a replacement contract. And then number 2 is we look at the ongoing eligibility once you come in to get your replacement contract. So that's, if you have any questions for me, I can give you more. So yeah, this was recorded in 2004 again. We never.
Yeah, so the action, right, what prompted this is probably recently purchasing the property. And so there isn't necessarily that you don't have enough agriculture on the property or like you're probably were listening into the prior cases. This situation is similar in that we just need to move forward with, or you need to apply for a replacement contract. And that process, once that gets going, there's a list of things that need to be provided to the committee so we can make sure that you're maintaining the ongoing eligibility, and we'll address those things. That's where we talk about minimum acreages and making sure you're filling out annual questionnaires and other things that, that are part of ongoing eligibility.
Which, by the way, I did see that you responded to the questionnaire.
Good.
So thank
Yes.
you.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And at this meeting, we wanted to at least have a initial discussion with you as the landowner so that you understand what we're asking of you, and we can hear what your intent is, if it is to stay in the program. And I'm hearing that you do want to stay in the program. So the next step needs to occur is to go to the Planning Development's website, I would think. It's usually available there. And there's a way to obtain a replacement contract application for the Ag Preserve program. And so you'll remain in the program. And the next step after that is we look at the application, and then probably the next couple meetings we'll be able to finish up this, and then you'll have your own separate contract, and it's all legal and
Okay.
it's worked out.
So, okay. Heidi, are you there and able to speak?
Yes, I'm
so
here.
Heidi had said to me back in January,
Mhm.
you need to assume the contract.
Yes, that was another question I was
Yes.
going to ask.
So we went through that, and
Uh-huh.
then this came along, and I thought, oh my God, we're gonna be kicked out. So maybe I don't send this in till I really understand what is going on. But we had the county respond with a contract. I have something here, and it's signed and notarized. I just haven't submitted it yet. So it sounds like what you're recommending is turn that in, and then this will pop back up in a review situation, and then I'll be back and we'll talk about how the land is planned, everything that's going.
Yeah, I would think that if anytime you purchase a property, and correct me if I'm wrong, committee members, but part of that is to assume the contract. So that's just changing the name of the ownership from what it was before to what it is now. So that's good, because then we have the correct landowner information. So when we send out letters like we did, it'll go to the right person, and that's one step. But
I think my question would be for David is if that step can be skipped. I don't know if
Oh, mhm.
they commit to getting a replacement contract, would they need to
or
assume a contract that is getting replaced? Is that necessary? Basically, my question.
I think the horse is already out of the barn on that. I mean, if that's what I heard, you've already paid your application fee for
Right.
the assumption. So
yeah.
if we found out now kind of closer and, that we were having this conversation and they had recently told you to assume the contract, I would say, yes, you don't need to go through the assumption, because really if the replacement contract is approved, that, negates the need to get the assumption contract. Since you've, already paid your application fee, you might as well just sign, what you have done.
Yep.
And that still is a valid exercise. If it was more concurrent and we knew about
Could've
it.
bundled it or
We
something.
could have just,
Mhm.
you don't have to go through the assumption, because we know you're going through and getting this replacement contract.
So I have it, I haven't submitted it, so I don't know at which point you pay the fee.
Oh, if you haven't paid the fee, I wouldn't submit it.
I don't,
Yeah,
Heidi, do you?
Yeah,
go
hi,
ahead.
Heidi Jones here, agent for the property owners. Thank you for that history. Just a little background, I had looked into this contract for the prior owner and then the Burstons when they purchased it. So it's good to know this background, because it's a bit of a puzzle, and this area of the county in particular with these smaller contracts. So it's good to get that clarification. I think the fee has been paid. I can talk to planning and development and follow up with you to see if that isn't necessary. Maybe we could get a refund on the fees, because very little time has been spent other than the initial application submittal package and a request for some signatures. And then we could resubmit for a new replacement contract and try to get some of those funds refunded. So happy to work on that and assist you, Natalie.
Is that acceptable? Is that?
Yeah, I
Okay.
definitely talk
All
with
right,
planning and
okay.
development. I mean,
Yeah.
and they may, if you're going to be, there's an application cost, like
Yeah.
a replacement contract as well. Maybe they can just apply what you've already paid towards that application fee. That'd be another thing I would ask them to do, whether or not that's possible.
Yes, happy to
Um,
do that.
So yeah, I certainly, work with your planner on that, and that's completely valid to look into that. And Sergio, I just had, maybe I'll share my screen, David, just to show the aerial photo. I just selected this one since we have the parcel boundaries, and although the aerial photo is, I think, dated from 2018. So for the property that you own now, it's both this parcel, which we have as 10 acres, and
Yeah.
this parcel, which is 1.12 acres.
It's only one legal parcel, so both parcels.
Two APN, okay.
will be
Gotcha.
APNs.
contract.
2 APN, right.
11.5 acres gross acreage.
Right. And then maybe just on the history of the property. So it's hard to see on this. I think it still exists. It's in the shadows. I can go to the other one, but there's this structure kind of midway in the parcel. Do you tell us what that structure is?
It was at the time they built the house in 2000, and well, the permits are all from '01, but it was a studio
Okay.
built for the prior owner was an artist.
Okay. Yeah, because at once, well, I guess for the committee, as you know, this would be considered a super prime parcel as far as our uniform rules go. And so there, because of the small size, it emphasizes the commercial ag production. So there's more limits on the allowable square footage, like for the home site. And also, it also counts, if there's any, ag structures, that sometimes those will count towards that allowance. So I know that it's pretty, actually, I'm dating myself, but I remember when the original application for the Turpins, who owned this property, came in. And at that time, I recall just that where the, it kind of had a unique home shape, kind of like an H almost. And it was like cutting corners of trying to identify everything within the 10,000 square feet allowance. It was that tight. It looks like there might have been some landscaping even now beyond what was maybe looked at. So I guess the point that I'm raising is there may be some challenges with looking at what's on the property now, that it complies with the allowances for the home personal use in the home site. So you'll want to work with your planner to look at those rules. Essentially it's the home site, it's their driveway, it's the landscaping, it shows anything that, it would be, if this artist studio, technically it's located away where it should be clustered together with the home site, the 10,000 square foot polygon. So there's going to be some potential challenges, I think, with trying to identify all of those within the allowance. The other part of the rules is that's why I brought up that it's actually, we're looking at 11 plus acres, because it'll increase slightly the allowance. I don't have the exact page, but
It's on page
if
21.
it's 10 acres, you would be allowed up to 10,000 square foot for the home site. I think for What page is that? Is it 11?
Yeah, when it's,
21?
yeah, 10 to 11 acres
Right.
is 11,000 square feet is maximum development.
Maximum.
And that's planting requirement would be 6 acres.
Right.
Yeah, up to 6.
So that would probably be the kind of magic number that you were looking at to have all of whatever's considered as the home site within that 11,000 square foot envelope, as long as you meet, and then you were bringing in that you're trying to focus on the plantings and bringing additional lands into production. That's the other part that you get the 11,000 if you have at least, what was it, 6 acres?
Yeah, 6 acres.
You'd have to have at least 6 acres in commercial ag production.
Okay, and if part of the land, like all of the sides, both of the property lines on the right and the left are environmentally sensitive, like I have a map that shows that, how does that change the calculation? I know you were talking about that earlier on the first item on the agenda, like.
Yeah, so it would be a similar perspective that, if they're not, because of the constraints, and obviously we don't want to convert any sensitive habitat or oaks or anything. So you would look at, are there any other suitable areas to be brought into production to try to meet that 6 acre minimum?
Okay, so it doesn't, so what the, okay, so.
It would look at it,
doesn't
try to
take out that
maximize.
acreage and then have you do half of what's available, essentially.
Right. I mean, I guess one of the questions that I don't think we've encountered, I mean, because the table, this is, that we were talking about the numbers, that's table 1-4 on page 21 of the uniform rules. So that additional 1 acre that would get you up to the 11,000 square foot, that's contingent upon you having higher planting. So the base level is 5 acres, so now you get 1,000 square feet if you do 1 more acre of planting. If technically there's constraints that you can't get that 6 acres, would you still get the 11,000 square feet?
Yeah, I was just looking for that. I didn't find that, but I did, there is a reference on 1-2.3, section B2 that does talk about that same language, but it's for super prime. It just says that you have to maintain fully planted as defined. And then it does have allowances for fallow periods as well as terrain or unreasonable planted areas, sensitive resources, or other similar constraints. And then where constraints are determined to exist, APAC will determine the minimum productive acreage to the contract, but in no cases shall this be less than 4.75. So
Yeah, and
as
so
far as whether you could allow that,
Right.
yeah,
I misspoke. I was thinking 5 acres. The minimum is,
is actually
4.75, and then
That's with constraints.
that's even with constraints. And then do we interpret that is still the minimum, but still you would be able to get
Mm.
the 1,000 bonus, or would it be capped at less than that because you can't get the 6?
Yeah. And is that, are those creeks that are on either
Dry,
side?
right, they're dry creeks.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
I haven't seen it with a lot of rain
Right.
since we had none this winter. but
is that what what the sensitive areas, riparian
I think
areas?
so. This one on the right is all eucalyptus
Mm,
in
mhm.
the creek. And then the left is oak, but it's kind of a ravine
Uh-huh,
or a more steep drop off to get into that.
I see.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where those lawns and that area that's like a shape of a triangle, that would come into.
Behind the house.
No, right
Oh,
there.
this area.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Is that a staging area or what
I
is
don't know
that?
what they used it for. It was like it is an open field,
Oh, okay.
so conceivably it could be planted.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and then just so you are aware, so like this main driveway access, because it also could be used to serve and access the orchards, it's considered dual use, so we don't count that towards your allowance, but
It's actually for all of the land use. The main drive is on the left.
oh,
That's gravel, so
so it comes all the way around here.
yeah, it comes all the way up. It splits down lower, right at where the little 1 acre parcel ends, it splits and then it comes up all the way to the top on the right side. Because you can see the orchard, the top part there is actually oranges. So
Are
they're
there
all.
orchards on kind of this northern? edge?
No, there's some olive trees there now.
So I think you would just have to demonstrate or at least build the position of why this portion of the road is actually a dual use road. Some portion of this is probably necessarily, related to the house, its parking area
That's correct.
of that square footage that is dual use. You would just want to note that in your calculations.
Okay.
But
Thank you. Yes, and this is Heidi again. Just want to thank you for those references. I've noted them all down. We can study topo survey and take all of these into consideration. So thank you for those.
And is water, how's water provided?
Carp Valley Water District.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
All right.
Yeah, so that will be in that application packet. There's an ag activities supplement that really lists the things that we're looking for. Maps are very helpful.
Okay. All right, Heidi, Jim, do you guys have any questions or comments?
I do not have any. Thank you very much for your time and recommendations. We understand the next steps.
Okay.
I do not. Thank you for your time and guidance. Very much appreciated.
Oh yeah, thank you for coming today, and it's very helpful to hear, and I'm glad to hear you want to stay in the program, and we look forward to having you come back. And are we thinking 2 months, a month? What time is how much time is needed for? I guess we just wait for the
Yeah, I would think
application.
indefinitely. At this point, we need to do some studying and get some maps together, some exhibits, and pull the package together. So we can regroup with you when we resubmit the new contract application package.
Okay.
And if we do all the work and it looks like we're not going to qualify, what do we do then? Do we have to inform or?
If the landowner decides not to continue, you would file a notice of non-renewal. And it's a roughly 9-year process to non-enroll in the program. And Sergio may have more specifics on how that might what that would look like from a property tax perspective. But
So
yeah.
it sounds like it might be better for us to be denied than to exit on our own, like go through
Well,
this and
and if
try.
the committee finds that you cannot maintain ongoing eligibility, then we would issue a county-initiated non-renewal, and it would still be a 9-year process, but
Mhm.
it would be the county taking those steps
Okay,
as opposed to the landowner.
all right.
Basically, you're technically still required to meet all the requirements. But if you're unable to meet the requirements, of course, that you're going to do. During those 9 years, what the assessor tries to do is that the assessment for your taxes, whatever benefits you're getting will be slowly removed over the 9-year period. And then you will be left with your Proposition 13 assessment. So basically, we're removing your benefit in terms of taxes, and eventually you will just remain with your Proposition 13 base.
Okay, thank you.
And just to let you know, so because we've agendized this as sort of some action needs to occur, we will continue it to some portion, some date in the future so we can track it. So that's why we were asking at a date where you think you may be submitting the application for the replacement contract. And then obviously it will take some time before, once it gets assigned to a planner, they'll review it and eventually put it on a future monthly agenda for us to review. So we could pick a date like August or something as a check-in date. And then if you have submitted, you can just let us know that you've submitted at that time or you're about to, or if you decided yeah, or at least your preliminary research looks like you're going to go in a different direction, then that would be, we could talk about it at that point. But if August or something is a future date, or September, what do you think would be a good just continuous date that anticipates sometime during that period you would be submitting an application to planning and development?
I think September is a good check-in date, and if we submit before that, we can let you know.
Okay, great.
You can always call the assessor's office to see what the impact will be in terms of your assessment, if that's something that will also help you make a decision. Like what's the savings that you'll be losing?
So I ask for anybody there.
So we have different appraisers assigned for your property. The appraiser name is Hannah Nelson. You can always ask for her, or you can ask for me too.
Okay, great, thank you.
So we'll put it on the next, the September, can you continue it till September? So let's see if there's anyone here from the public who'd like to speak on this item.
No hands raised on this.
Okay. Anyone else, any committee members have any comments? Royce, any?
Oh,
Yeah.
I would make a motion that we continue this item to the September APAC meeting to provide an opportunity for the owners to submit a replacement contract.
Second that motion.
Board Member Lackey,
Aye.
Board Member Larson,
aye.
Board Member Jevremovic,
Aye.
Board Member Ricardo.
Aye.
Chair Stark.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
And you did
Thank
great.
you.
Didn't need to be nervous.
Okay, and that takes us to item number 6, which is the Folger Arthur F&C&A Incorporated Planner consultation. And this is, we're at 11 o'clock. Before we go into this, are we okay? We can take a break? Ready? Okay. All right, very good. So we have a Soren Kringle, who's assigned planner. I don't know if Soren is with us today. This is for contract number 71AP099, and it's the applicant is seeking information regarding splitting parcels that comprise the contract. It's over 850 acres, and they want to split it into allegedly 3 contracts, and we're pulling up a map. There's some information provided in the packet for us, and this property is located in the Sisquoc area, 4th Supervisorial District. Is Soren, or is there any representative? Okay, you're here today. Would you like to provide an overview for the committee?
This is Soren. I'm online, but Dave Cross, I think, is also online. I think he'd probably be best to. Looks like his
Okay.
hand is raised, so I'll let.
All right.
Take it
Thank
away.
you, Mr. Cross. Would you like to provide a little update with the committee, for the committee? I mean, we did get your memo as well.
Yes, yeah. First of all, thank you very much. We're here today with a recommendation from Planning and Development to review this with the Ag Committee. And so that's why we're here. And I just wanted to point out a couple items and kind of review it to get your input before we officially apply for the tentative map. If you look at the map that you're seeing right there, it's a little deceiving. That portion that's in red is actually part of the parcel. It's a separate APN that's not in the ag preserve. The northern part, the larger part of that square, is about 550 acres. There it is. And that is in the ag preserve. And what we're proposing, well, first of all, historically, on the western side of that parcel, historically has been used for grazing. In fact, there are horses grazing here today. And on the eastern side of the parcel has historically been row crops. And what we're proposing is there's pretty much a natural division that goes through that parcel because of the environmental constraints that occur. And what we're proposing is to divide that parcel along those environmental constraints. And I'm wondering if Soren or someone there, do you have the tentative parcel map that we submitted?
I believe it's in the box folder.
Yes, it is. It's provided for us. Should we pull that up? Would that be helpful?
Please,
Okay.
that would be fantastic. There it is. Very good. Very good. And if it's possible to magnify that a little bit. So you can see on the northern part of the northern 550 acres, there's kind of a natural division already. And so what we're proposing is to create a parcel map to divide this property into 3 parcels. The western 300 acres would still be row crops. The eastern 180 acres would still be used for grazing. The southern portion is not in the ag preserve, and it's actually zoned differently, and that would remain row crops. So the 550 acres that we're going to be dividing is zoned Ag 2-100. In the ag preserve contract, it specifies that the minimum parcel size for future new parcels would be 100 acres. And so that would meet that. I do want to indicate that on that tentative parcel map, it shows a 2-acre square for development. And knowing that in the ag preserve, we would be limited to 2 acres for residential development. But what we would propose is to present about a 15 to 20 acre envelope of potential development. And then when we go in for the LUP to build a residence, when that time comes, we know that we're limited to 2 acres and it would come back to the ag preserve, of course, for that. So that's basically what our proposal is. And like I said, it was a recommendation of planning to come in and present it to the ag committee, get input and feedback before we officially submit.
Thank you, Mr. Cross. Committee members, any initial comments?
I have a question, Mr. Cross. Are you saying that this entire property is currently one legal lot? The three assessor parcels are one?
Yes, there's actually 2 assessor parcels, but it's one property. And I suppose that the division is because Orchid Gary Road kind of divides that parcel between the north and south. And what makes this parcel unique as well is there's 2 zonings on it. The southern portion is zoned Ag 240 and it's not in the ag preserve. And the upper 550 acres is in the ag preserve. It's zoned Ag 2-100. But it is officially, according to the preliminary title report and the surveyor, one legal parcel.
Lot. Okay. Thank you. So this makes sense now that you're bringing. I was wondering why you were bringing the southern parcel into the discussion, and it makes sense because it's part of one legal lot. Thank you.
In 2009, we issued a certificate of compliance it contains these two APNs as one legal lot. But the interesting part is that the 1979 contract has only upper portion in the Ag Preserve
Or weren't
contract.
taking that.
Yeah, so that's
look in
why- so this is-
1971. I mean, logically, you look at it, you think it's separate parcels
Yeah.
because of Orchid Gary Road there.
And there are different interpretations about, what makes legal parcel. Probably, nobody bothered to look.
Yeah,
at
I mean, today, if all of this land wanted to come into contract, or if they only wanted the northern half to come into contract, our rules would require them to have either split the lot or bring all of their adjacent.
So now the lot split is gonna accomplish.
They'll resolve that, yeah. So, Mr. Cross, were there any uniform rule or ag preserve questions you have specifically for us? Obviously, it's going to take its path and have to go through looking at the viability of all these the ag viability of each resulting parcel as part of the development review process. But specifically for the uniform rules, do you have any questions for us?
I don't. Like I said, we're here from the recommendation of planning and development. If Soren has any specific things that he would like to bring up that could possibly be a red flag or something that we need to consider, it was their recommendation we come here. I also want to indicate that Karen Nolan from Fugler is here as well. And so if Karen has any questions, please bring it up. But that's basically why we're here, to kind of present an overview, get feedback from the Ag Committee, and see if there's something that you see that we aren't seeing that could impact it.
And I think from P&D's side, I think we were looking for some clarification on what the path would be for the contract. I think there was some discussion about would they need a new contract for the new parcel. And I think there was also initially some discussion about taking parcel 1 out of contract, but Dave, it sounds like parcel 1, you would want that to stay in contract with parcel 2, correct?
Yes, that's correct. It was something that we had initial thoughts about, but it doesn't make sense, and it would be a very complicated thing to do. So we would like both parcels to stay in the Ag Preserve. Of course, there would have to be separate contracts written for them once it's accomplished. But you're absolutely right, Soren. We did decide against that and want to keep it within the Ag Preserve. And the other question I have is, particularly with Soren here, as we go through the process, does that make sense to have a 15 or 20 acre potential envelope with this tentative parcel map, so that when the time comes for them to come in with a residence, they're not limited to a 2 acre postage stamp that may not necessarily fit, but knowing that we'll have to limit it to 2 acres and then come back to the Ag Committee?
Yeah, I think that does make sense. I would defer to APAC. APAC wouldn't require a 2 acre building envelope. You're just looking for that 2 acre developable area once they come back in and to receive your approval, correct?
So from APAC's perspective, we don't need an envelope. I mean, that's really on the environmental reviews. When you're looking at creating these lots, you may want to have, a larger potential envelope area so you can assess any potential physical impacts with potential future development. But from APAC's perspective, our uniform rules already established the size limitations. And then if at some point there's a future application for a land use permit for a house, then we'll review the location. But we're less concerned, we would be reviewing it more so that, yes, in fact, it's not exceeding the allowances and it's in a location that's not affecting agriculture or to a significant extent. So we wouldn't, it's not necessary to have any 2 acre floating envelope for APAC's purposes as far as your tentative parcel map. But certainly I understand that's typical that for reviewing potential impacts, you want to look at defining potential locations for an envelope So that will take its own pathway.
And then just to clarify, so once this parcel map's proposed, would parcel one then need a new contract, or would both parcels need a new contract, or could we continue with the same contract?
No, they would. I mean, you're essentially, this parcel map is going to create 3 separate parcels effectively. And so you're going to want to, typically what you would do is also condition the recordation of the parcel map, that you would get replacement contracts for parcel 1 and parcel 2, future parcel 1 and parcel 2. Is that what you would do? I'm looking at Alex.
Yeah, I would, I can see that as long as the 2 parcels 1 and 2 are under the same ownership, I don't see a reason to have separate contracts, but it just as a condition in case the ownership splits, then at that point they would need to get replacement contracts.
I thought that's what Mr. Cross had indicated, that you're interested in getting 2 separate contracts, parcel 1 and parcel 2.
Yeah, actually, what was just said made sense. Once one of the parcels sells, at that time, you would have to have replacement contracts. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yes, but there probably should be some, at least some mechanism for during the tentative map approval to provide for that possibility that there will be 2 separate ownerships on the northern part, and then at that point there should be 2 separate contracts.
Understood.
I didn't follow that.
And I think the other question from the consult was getting some preliminary feedback on parcel 1 by itself. Would that be a viable parcel to be under an ag preserve contract? Because you're pretty limited. It's just grazeland at that point. And kind of what you would be requiring of the applicant to provide to show that, to justify it.
Well, you're going to need to show, I mean, that one on the, I guess, what would shown as parcel 1, would have to have its own water source, or you'd have to have some shared water agreement. So, I mean, that you're going to have to probably, that would probably be something that you should deal with the parcel map. And then if it's going to be grazing, I mean, technically it's greater than 100. So just on that side, it would be considered non-prime. And if you're going to be doing grazing, which it sounds like you said is currently being grazed, you would just want to have information on, that it has adequate fencing, there's secured water source, and there's either the owner or there's a lease for the grazing. So it's pretty low bar, but based on, I don't know where all the different wells and water sources are, but if those are going to be separated because of the creation of different lots, each of the resulting lots is going to need to have their own secure water source or have some, pre-approved shared water agreement.
And I would ask, because the primary use has to be commercial ag for any contract. I would ask if, I think Mr. Cross mentioned that currently it's only horses that are grazing. So are the horses personal use, or are they for commercial production? I guess that would be my question, because again, we have to remember that the primary use has to be commercial ag.
To answer the question, historically, it has been cattle in the past, and now it is horses. And it would be there if its requirement is for commercial and it would be leased out. That's what it would be. It would meet the requirements of the Williamson Act.
Yeah, if this is Stephanie with the Ag Department. So if it ends up, you get a separate contract for that parcel 1, you might want to look at the uniform rules, just there's animal boarding and breeding facilities. So if it's considered your principal boarding and breeding as the horses, you can do that, but there's certain allowances. You have to have a certain amount of pasture land. But if it's cattle, then yeah, we would want some kind of understanding of, is it a shared rangeland with the adjacent property, or a leased situation? Is it fenced? Those kinds of details.
And I appreciate that. In the past, as I said, it was cattle, but now
Yeah.
it's horses.
Uh-huh.
And David, is there any plan with the parcel 3 to bring it under the ag preserve contract?
I don't believe so. I believe the
Okay.
goal is to remain as is. But if that's an option that the property owner would like to pursue, then we could always come back and do that, correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So yeah, if I can clarify myself for David, so the current contract, the exterior boundary would not change. So in that case, I don't think there would be requirement to replace the contract. But I'm guessing if one of parcels 102 gets separated by the under the new ownership, then either the owner would need to submit application for replacement contract, or assessor probably would bring this to the committee or basically review and would notify the new owners about the need to replace the contract. So that's kind of.
That makes sense, Alex. Mr. Cross, I was just thinking about, are there any existing home sites on either parcel 1 or parcel 2?
There is not. There are no existing home sites.
Okay, because that would be another consideration, if there had been houses on each site, then that would be an issue. We would probably recommend you get replacement contracts concurrently.
Right.
What was I gonna say? Yeah, I think, viewing it that way, just the northern one, basically as far as the external contract boundaries aren't going to change, and thinking of similar situations in the past where sometimes the owner has done a parcel map just for estate planning purposes, so they created the parcels, but they weren't proposing any development. We did still, and one of the main things the APAC did look at is that to look at, shared water agreements or the water sources that would be available, secured water source to each of the individual parcels as part of making sure, we wouldn't do that if it was just they were coming in for a contract, but since the action is to create these as new lots, we'd want to look at that they have a secured water source.
Absolutely. And we would be coming in either with a shared water agreement or an on-site source. So that's completely understood.
Okay. Yeah, I think those are the main things that we would focus on. So I appreciate you seeking out some information as you move forward.
Well, I appreciate your time, and I also want to thank Soren for his recommendation and for being online too to help out with this. So greatly appreciate it, and looking forward to coming back at some point. But again, appreciate your time and your input.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Soren.
Thanks, everyone. Super helpful.
Yeah, thank you, Soren, for coming. We always appreciate the planners coming and providing us just your perspective and head off any issues that might come up. Thank you.
And
Definitely.
I just wanted to mention, is this a discussion item?
Yes,
Okay.
a discussion
so
item
we need to
only.
Come back before the committee at one point?
When they-
When they actually have the parcel map moving
Yeah.
forward, it'll come back to us.
Then at that point, you would look at.
We would look at the shared water
Each
agreements and all of those.
each individual lot would qualify for the contract if necessary. Regarding the building envelopes and.
Yeah, if they get replacement.
Well,
contracts.
yeah, on the planning side, they're gonna look at that side, like I think we talked about. It'll come back to us.
Yeah.
And it'll be more, they're creating 2 parcels within the existing contract, and what are the concerns that the APAC has, like making sure the water and
sense.
those
I
things.
got it.
Yeah, so it would come back to us either way, whether they got replacement contracts or they just it under one contract.
And the
Okay.
surveyor's office will probably see this map pretty soon, once Dave gets a formal submittal in.
Very good. Thank you.
Thanks.
Did I have this? There was no public comment. Is there
We
public?
didn't
comment
ask
on
for it
this?
yet, but
Is there
for the
public
record,
comment on this item?
we do not have any public.
Okay, thank you. All right. That takes us to our last agenda item, which is item number 2. And this is the APAC Temporary Ad Hoc Subcommittee and presentation to the board. My fellow committee member, subcommittee member, Alex and I, or sorry, Sergio and I, we have not met since this committee last met, so I don't have anything to report on that front, but it has been moved from May 20th to June 10th. And the board letter and the presentation are still at the CEO's office for consideration. But I did want to mention one thing, which was brought up by council. Council advises us and did not want the full quorum of the committee to be present at that meeting. And unless something has changed, Tyler, that's my understanding. So that means that we would have to select at most 2 people to attend the hearing. And I know you're all jumping forward, but I would be one. And so I need a second person. And I thought maybe best thing to do would be to bring it to the committee and see what your thoughts are.
It'd be jet lag on 10, so I'd appreciate if I could get a break and not to be before the board.
And for me, it's really hard to be available in June because it's when we are trying to close the roll for all the assessments. I can certainly try, and I will try to be there, definitely. But I haven't responded to Teresa's calendar request because it's very fluid. I don't know how busy it's going to be. It's looking like it's going to be busy, but I don't know. If in any case, I'm sure Michael Daly is going to be there. He's already said that he wants to be present. And so for sure, somebody from the assessor, not from this committee though, and I think that's what you are looking for, somebody from the committee. So you will have somebody from the assessor. If should there be any questions for the assessor's office, I'm sure Michael can answer the questions that may come up.
And Stephanie, can you clarify again? I'm not sure. I understood that the advice was not to have quorum.
That's right. So we would have,
We only can have 2.
2 people. That's correct. And I'm assuming I'd be one of those people.
I'm out.
Yes. Okay.
I would volunteer David.
And I'm happy to do that. And my question to Stephanie was, I mean, I know as this has been going through, it's also been elevated to higher positions in terms of talking both with my director and your director. And had there been any suggestions from them, in addition to you, who would be, if we're not going to have a quorum, who might be the appropriate people to have available?
I have not brought that to them, but I am doing we're having just a brief meeting on Monday. So that's something that we could talk about, but I wanted to bring it to the committee, and I would imagine they'd say, has anyone talked to the committee yet? So that's why I'm doing it today.
So yeah, I would say, I'm happy to do it. I don't think we need to be definitive at this point. And certainly the understanding is that we won't have a quorum and we'll leave it up to whomever they wish.
Yes.
And they'll reach out to
Yeah.
representatives.
For county councils, can we still be present as part of the public or no? Not even that. Don't even.
That's the brown act right
Gotcha. Gotcha.
You can watch on.
Online, okay.
Without being dialed in as attendee
I
remotely.
think it's best if I.
And if we,
myself out.
if I could ask, if we did notice, what is the concern having the quorum at a,
So our county council
mhm,
just determined that it was too problematic to have two meetings ongoing noticed at the same time with the Board of Supervisors meeting and what would then become an APAC meeting happening concurrently in the same room.
mm,
Rather it done just one meeting at a time.
mm,
That makes sense.
okay,
Yeah, it's hard to choose. I'm sure Sergio's input would be very valuable and also.
yes, he's been my subcommittee member,
So, but if
abandoning me.
Daley is there, can he answer in his own function any questions regarding without break?
Correct, because he's not on this committee, he's not a committee member, that would actually be helpful. Any of your partners, cohorts, et cetera, could attend as non-committee members.
Okay.
But
Yes,
4 or 5 of you would be problematic.
yeah,
We'll ask
that,
Chris if he would like to come and.
This will be there. I'll coach him.
mm-hmm.
He's always there, so.
So, yeah,
You mentioned, Madam Chair, that you'll have a dry run with the higher ups, I
Yes.
guess. If you think that there might be, and I know you do think there might be some questions for the assessor's office. I can also, talk to either David or you, kind of like giving you a potential answer to potential questions before the meeting. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's okay, especially if you do it in your subcommittee, even better.
Okay.
yeah. I-
No meeting.
No meeting
Yes.
outside. Okay.
And if for some reason we have to, the committee has to decide who goes, could we do a vote through email or is that,
Should still be noticed and done.
okay,
I don't think that the committee has to decide who presents. I think
Okay.
the subcommittee could decide.
okay,
Or you could do it I don't.
Very
know if there's a
good.
Meeting between now and if they move it again, but
mm-hmm, yeah. Any word on that?
right now it's on the long range calendar for June 10th.
Yes, okay. All right,
Do we need an action to? No?
Only if you have an action you'd like to take.
I don't think we need to take a formal action, so I don't suggest any.
And I guess just as it relates to our projection report, I think it'll still work with, we had continued the discussion of the chair till after the board hearing. So I think
Yes,
it'll align, is in
Yes.
alignment.
mm-hmm. Yep. All right. Okay, so next item is any other reports from committee members? Nothing? Okay. All right, meeting is adjourned and let's see, I
right.
have
Thank you, Royce.
Thank you.
11:37. Oh, thank you, Royce, for coming. I'm sorry. I forgot to acknowledge you. Did you have any statements or anything you wanted to, or any committee member reports?
I don't.
All right, thank you. So 11:37, I think.